Hey, it's you, man, from KC95 here. Good evening and welcome to Toasted Tavern. Your host, Scott Tobin, and the man called Wags are ready to bring you the night in sports. So pull up a stool, grab a drink, and let's get toasted.
Good evening. Welcome into the Toasted Tavern. And yes, you were seeing that correctly. Wags and Scott are back and better than ever. Scott feeling a lot better from earlier this week. I know we missed a chance to talk to Jim Powers on Monday, but we got a lot of good questions in from him and to Jim Powers. It was a great interview. Make sure you check that out. A lot of high school action. But Scott, I'm glad you're feeling better. Glad to have you back on. It's been a while since you and I got a chance to actually sit down and talk to each other. It feels like forever.
Yeah, where am I? Who are you? What's going on? I don't understand. Yeah, it felt good to hear John Hewlett's voice again, man. It's been too long, but good to be back. Definitely feeling better. A little bit energized, still kind of tired, but good to be back and ready to talk some sports with you. Like you said, it's been too damn long since we've done this.
It has, and a lot of stuff has happened in the world of sports since we last talked. But for us specifically, it's all about the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals have essentially dominated the local news cycle, even with the Blues being pretty good so far to start the season. The Cardinals have really kind of dominated the news cycle with the Gold Gloves coming out, the nominations, the firing of Mike Schilt really kind of started all of this off. And we'll talk a little bit later about the fact that he's nominated for Manager of the Year, former Cardinal Manager of the Year candidate. So that comes out. You've got some signings going on. A couple guys dropped from the 40-man roster and have elected free agency. You got some news on the winter warm-up, some guys raking down in the Arizona Fall League. I mean, the Cardinals are just all over the place. But let's start off right at the top with the Gold Gloves, because the Cardinals set a record for being the first team in 1 year to have 5 Gold Glove Award winners. Guys that you expected: Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, maybe even Tyler O'Neill was expected. And then 2 guys that, one was a surprise to me, and one was a much deserved, and Harrison Bader with the much deserved. And the surprise was Tommy Edmond. I was very, very surprised that he ended up winning the Gold Glove, not because he didn't play well defensively this year, but I thought maybe the name of him wasn't going to get it. You know, his name wasn't something that was up there in most people's mouths. But what was your reaction to Tommy Edmond winning that Gold Glove at second base?
Yeah, that was the one that definitely surprised me. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool that he even got nominated, but I really thought Colton Wong would win it again. You know, he'd won the last 2. I thought that was kind of Wong's award to win. So Tommy definitely surprised me. Really excited for Harrison Bader. You know, he talked going into the season about how important that was to him to actually win a Gold Glove. And, you know, no doubt that he was deserving. The only question was, with the injuries and the amount of games he missed early in the season, was he going to be able to win it because of that? And he did. So excited for him. Cool to see Tyler O'Neill win 2 in a row. The one that really disappoints me, and I question why he didn't get it. I don't understand why Yadi didn't win number 10. I mean, I know, you know, some people are going to say, oh, he's slowing down a little bit, but who won it? Who was the guy in Pittsburgh? I don't even think I've ever heard of that guy before, the catcher.
Jacob Stallings.
Yeah, I mean, that's not somebody whose name pops when you think of defensive catchers. I brought this up a couple of times, and I really have to question. I wonder how many voters don't want Yadi to tie Johnny Bench for that 10th Gold Glove.
That's a really good question. I mean, that's a little bit suspect if that's the case, but that's surprising to me. I mean, I think at this point, you know, yeah, he had some competition from a Buster Posey, but for the most part, Yadi's been the guy. And you look at, you know, runners. How many running or stolen base attempts are still not being taken against the Cardinals because Yadi's out there? Not necessarily because he's going to gun them down every time. He's shown that he can still do it, but it's just the thought in their minds that he's behind the plate, and when he's paired with the pitching staff that he has, that it's really kind of impossible to run on the Cardinals. So it's not so much that the stats are there, but it's the mindset of runners that they know they're not going to try going after Molina. So you have to take that into account as well. And I don't think they're doing that. And I don't know how much credence I lend into that theory of not tying Bench, but I could see that being part of the criteria for some of these older writers, especially, that Johnny Bench holds a place in their minds that this is the epitome of catchers, and no one's ever going to touch that. Well, I mean, I know I'm biased because I'm a Cardinal fan, but I think Yadi's right up there, and he deserves to win his 10th Gold Glove.
I totally agree, and it's just weird to me because usually when you see a guy like Yachty who's been so good for so long and they get to the end of their career like this, a lot of times they get those awards. Maybe they didn't earn it necessarily that year, maybe their numbers are slipped, but just their reputation, the respect those guys have garnished over the years, they win those awards. And so I think Yachty's a little bit hurt. I know from some of the comments that Yachty's a little bit hurt, a little bit irritated. And, that should scare a whole lot of people if Yadier Molina is going into his last year a little bit angry, a little bit pissed off, feeling disrespected. Who knows what he'll do. And like you said, hardly anybody runs on Yachty, but those who do, he throws them out. How many times did we see him basically dare a runner to go on him and then just throw him out by 10 feet? The guy's unbelievable. And, I still don't think Yachty gets the respect that he should from a lot of national writers, a lot of national people. You're never going to see another Yachty or Molina. You're not going to see a guy who's going to play for 20 years basically and go out there and play 140, 150 games and hurt. And, the guy basically almost, lost part of his man parts a couple of years ago and was back behind the plate in a couple of weeks. There's just not those kind of guys. Yachty's old school. He should get more respect than he does. We all know that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I think he will be when it all is said and done. I think he's going to have the numbers to do it. I think if the Cardinals could go out and win another World Series, and he'd be part of 3 World Series championships and have played in 5 World Series, I think that moves him up the list. And you look at his postseason numbers too. He's way up there in Major League history now in hits and at bats and even home runs in the World Series. So Yachty's a guy who I think will be a first ballot Hall of Famer, even though he doesn't get as much credit from the national media as I think he deserves.
Do you think it comes down to maybe the fact that he might be a little too fiery in a sense? He's a guy that leads the charge. He leads from the front. He's going to get in guys' faces. He was pretty much at the center of the Brandon Phillips fight in Cincinnati, and even in the age that he's at now, he's still a very, I wouldn't say combative person, but he will stand up for what he believes is right and protect his teammates, protect the team, protect the crest on his jersey. Do you think that maybe these writers look at it and go, yeah, he's too much of a hot button person, that we don't want this being a representation of the position? Is that something that may play into it as well? Do they think he's too fiery?
There might be some people, there may be some people that look at Yachty and see that stuff, see the fights, see the fact that he's always in the middle of it, see the tattoos, see the different things, and think, okay, this guy doesn't represent what we want baseball to represent. But, you can't look at Yachty that way because, he's the leader of this ball club. He's the heart and soul of this team. And, as a player and a manager, that's exactly what you want, is a guy to be that fiery guy that's going to stand up and not take anything. So there may be a few of those guys that do that. And like I said, the tattoos and the whole image kind of take away from some of the stuff that Yachty does. But I don't think there's a lot of them that are like that.
Well, let's jump over to Harrison Bader again, because you were talking about the fact that he missed a lot of time this year. Weren't sure if that was going to play a part into it. I just want to throw a couple of things out here per StatCast. He topped the NL and NL outfielders in ultimate zone rating, 11.4, placed second in defensive runs saved at 15 in a year where he missed a decent amount of games. That right there tells you how important Harrison Bader is to this Cardinals team. And he did add the bat this year as well, a little bit more consistently. And we know Gold Gloves are not an offensive award, but sometimes you think offense does play a little bit of part in who wins the Gold Gloves. Well, Harrison added that part to his game this year pretty consistently. And it just shows you once again how important he is, and the people that maybe wanted to run him out of town. Probably not the right thing to do. Patience was well rewarded for Harrison Bader.
And there's, for some whatever reason, there's still a lot of people that want to run him out of town. He's not that good and he's too flashy. You know what? And I've said this all the time. You can be flashy if you can back it up. And, Harrison Bader is a little bit flashy. He does play with a lot of flair. He gets excited out there. But he's not a guy who it's all about me. When you hear him talk and you see the things he does, most of them, he's doing something. But it's not, look what I did. It's look what we're doing. Or come on, let's go. And trying to fire up his teammates. And when you hear him talk, he never, ever talks about himself. It's always about the team and the guys around him. And, I think he gets some bad reps from some people because of the hair. And, some people think he's too pretty and this and that, and I mean, it's true. You hear it all the time. But, he's a gutty, gritty ball player. And you look at the numbers he put up this year. If you take that and you take basically the 50 games that he missed and add those out, I mean, he probably is a 20 homer, 70 RBI guy this year. And you have that with the defense that he plays, and that makes him one of the elite center fielders in all of baseball.
Well, I mean, I think a good portion of his fandom actually do think he's pretty, and pretty for a different reason. And that's why you see a lot of Bader jerseys in the stands. But yeah, he's an ultimate team player. And I think he fits the Cardinal mold exactly the way you need to fit into it. He reminds me, I mean, I wouldn't say he reminds me of David Eckstein in that sense, but, Eckstein was a guy that was a team player, team first kind of guy. And everything that comes out of Harrison Bader's mouth is exactly what you want to hear out of somebody that is giving their all, and yet still, when they're recognized, spreads it out to the team. And that comes down straight from the top as far as Yachty. I mean, Yachty's the same way. It's team. And it feels like this year, everybody on the squad bought into that. And, Tyler O'Neill got his second Gold Glove. You got Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado winning theirs as well. And this is where it gets interesting, because you do kind of have to give credit to Mike Shildt for building that clubhouse to being that family and that team and that one for all for one kind of thing. And the fact that he has now been let go is up for manager of the year. That's another piece that falls into it, because you don't become manager of the year after you get fired because you weren't a great manager. He brought this team together, fought through everything. The Jeff Albert rumors of him, people just absolutely wanting to get him canned, everything that went on this year. And it just makes you sit back and think, really, what is the direction for this team going forward next year? And is Ali Marmol the guy that can really kind of keep it all together?
Yeah, I mean, I feel comfortable with Marmol because he, was basically Mike Shilt's right-hand man. So he's got a lot of those same characteristics that Shildt had. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think this team is going to be together. We've heard all the players talk about how much they like Marmol, and, they're all pretty close. And, I think the Cardinals made a really good hire this week when they brought in Skip Schumacher, because here's another guy who knows what it takes to bring a team together, has been on, was on that 2011 Cardinal team, which we all know how they overcame things and came together. So he has that in his back pocket. And so I think he's the perfect person to kind of step in there too and be that number two guy to kind of reinforce that. And, and there's rumors floating around still that, the assistant hitting coach is still available for this team for next year. There's some rumors that Matt Holliday may have some interest in that, or Ryan Ludwig. Both of their names have popped up. So, if you bring one of those guys into, I think you just really solidify this coaching staff, and I don't think you'll have any issues there at all.
And speaking of Matt Holliday, I want to send congratulations out to his son Jackson for committing to Oklahoma State, Matt's alma mater, today. So congratulations to the young Holliday. Hope for major success there. And who knows, maybe he'll get a chance to put the Holliday name back on the back of a Cardinal jersey and out on the field here very, very soon as well. And if Matt's the assistant hitting coach, maybe he's going to be coaching him one day. We'll see. So congrats there. Let's talk a little bit more about the award nominations that the Cardinals are involved in. Mike Shildt, obviously former Cardinal, being nominated for Manager of the Year. He's a finalist. Do we think he has a chance to win? Because he's going up against Gabe Kapler and Craig Counsell. Obviously the Brewers kind of ran away with the Central Division. Didn't really advance as far as I think people were expecting them to. The Giants, I think, shocked everybody but by what they did. Didn't really finish the job, but Gabe Kapler got a lot out of that Giants team. What's your feel and your take on who comes out of this for Manager of the Year?
I would be shocked if Kapler doesn't just absolutely run away with it, because nobody was expecting anything out of that Giants team. Mm-hmm. I know I predicted that they'd be fighting the Rockies for last place in this division when we did our preseason predictions. So I think Gabe Kapler is going to run away with it. I'd be shocked if he doesn't.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I think everybody picked the Giants to finish at or below last place in the NL West, and they ended up winning essentially the most games in baseball this year. So Gabe Kapler, a hell of a job out there in San Francisco. And then you got Dylan Carlson up for Rookie of the Year, going up against Jonathan India of the Reds and Trevor Rogers of the Marlins. I kind of am leaning a little bit towards Jonathan India. I think he had a really, really good season for the Reds. He played amazingly well against the Cardinals. I hated seeing him up to bat when the Cardinals were facing him. But DC had a very solid year for St. Louis, and really, I think, eased some fans' minds that once he got regular playing time, that he's going to be a consistent player. Maybe not be that, superstar outfielder that, maybe a Bryce Harper was when he hit the league, but he's going to be a very solid player for the Cardinals for a very long time. Do you think he has a shot, or is this a Jonathan India kind of running away with this one as well?
No, I think Jonathan India is going to win. I think India will win that kind of going away as well. You're right, though. Dylan Carlson did have a really solid year. His numbers probably not as high as they could have been because he spent a lot of the year hitting either, first part of the season, he was hitting like 7th or 8th in the lineup, kind of at the bottom, and then spent a good chunk of time in the 2-hole and was kind of went away from trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark and was kind of trying to get on base more than anything else. Kind of settled into that middle of the lineup towards the end of the season, and we saw his home run and RBI production really take off. So I agree with you totally. I think he's going to be a Gold Glove, probably a 280, 290 hitter with Gold Glove defense and, a 20, 25 home run type hitter, and just a really solid ball player for a long time for this club.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he brings, and I feel like that outfield is now kind of set with O'Neill, Bader, and Carlson out there. You've got 2 Gold Glovers out there, and not to say prediction-wise, but I think Dylan Carlson's another player that could potentially win a Gold Glove as well. He's got a lot of range, very good abilities in the outfield, was able to transition from left, played some center as well, in right field. I mean, he's a guy that has that potential. I mean, I'm not going to say the Cardinals could set a record next year again, but you're returning all these guys. I don't want to sit there and say you could essentially sweep the Gold Gloves, but this team is one shortstop away, essentially, from being able to potentially sweep the Gold Gloves next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be in the conversation, I would think, as long as everybody stays healthy and you don't see anybody really falling off defensively. So, yeah, I think that's something that could definitely be in consideration. I don't know that the voters would let that happen, but I think that it's something you could definitely look at next year for sure.
And speaking of that, we have to talk about the free agent signing period that's kind of opened up. The Cardinals struck first when the free agency kind of opened up. They made a big move to solidify their bullpen, and they brought back TJ McFarland on a 1-year deal. I know that doesn't sound like a huge move, but what McFarland was able to do after he came in July was essentially lead the team in inducing double plays. I mean, he was the go-to double play specialist. And a lot of times with the Cardinals, you would see somebody come in, maybe pitch a half a season or hit for half a season, and they just go crazy off the reservation and offer a massive deal to this player. I think they went smart in this instance, and they signed him just the 1-year deal, very team-friendly kind of deal. And you got a guy that, as a lefty, can come in, get the ball on the ground, and make some and get some double plays. I think it was a smart signing by the Cardinals. I think it solidifies that part of the bullpen. You got a ton of money that has come off the books, obviously, but they're really doing what they can to minimize the amount spent on, I'm not going to say lesser positions, but positions that you can spend less on and be productive, and really saving some of this money for maybe some big ticket items. First off, what are you thinking about the McFarland signing? And with that being said, what's the next move for the Cardinals?
Yeah, I think TJ McFarland was a guy that you needed to bring back. Like you said, he had that heavy sinker, came in and got a ton of double plays, really helped solidify that bullpen, the second half of the season. So I think, like you said, that was a really smart move on a 1-year deal. Now I have a feeling, if you read John Mozeliak's quotes today, now it's time to be patient, because it sounds like that's what we're going to get now. You got TJ McFarland. Now I'm not sure I would expect the Cardinals to do much of anything else until after we get some kind of labor negotiation done. It sounds like they're big, from everything Mo's saying right now, it sounds like their big priority is pitching. They're going to go pitching. And, then we'll see what happens. But I was thinking about it tonight. When you look at what this available free agency wise, the players that are out there, both as hitters and pitchers, the Cardinals are really in a good spot, because you look at that team and you go, okay, if there's a free agent that we really want, we can play this really coy, because you look at that team and go, okay, their outfield's set. They don't really need to do anything. Would a shortstop be nice? Yeah, but we don't really have to do that, because we still have Paul DeYoung. You still have Sosa. Nolan Gorman's coming, so maybe Tommy Edmond plays some shortstop. We don't really need to do that. DH, yeah, maybe. But, you've got Gorman and Yepes coming. They're both big hitters. Could we go get some starting pitching? Yeah, but, we've also got Matthew Libator and Oviedo and Jake Woodford and Zach Thompson and all these kids coming. So, I mean, when you're in negotiation with somebody, the Mosaic could be like, yeah, we might be interested, but we feel pretty comfortable. They're not going to be the team that's desperate going, hey, we'll give you whatever we want. They're going to sit back and wait for guys to fall into their lap. And there's going to be some guys that will fall into their lap, because like we talked about, look at the shortstops that are available. I mean, when you talk about Correa and Corey Seager and Trevor Story and Javi Baez and Andrelton Simmons and I'm forgetting somebody, Marcus Simeon, and the list goes on. There's only going to be so many teams that are going to need a shortstop. So at some point, the money's going to run out, and somebody's going to have to take a lesser deal. So you can kind of sit there and wait and see what falls to you, and they can do the same thing with the starting pitching. I mean, they can go out and get, you can go out and kind of nitpick and spend a little bit of money on a bullpen piece here and there, like you talked about. And then you go, okay, yeah, we'd like to get a starting pitcher. What do we want to do? Okay, there's Max Scherzer. There's Clayton Kershaw. There's Marcus Stroman. There's Zach Greinke. There's Justin Verlander. I mean, there's all these veteran guys that, would be perfect fits for the Cardinals for a year or two if you're trying to kind of fill in until you feel like some of these younger guys are ready. So you can kind of sit around and see, okay, which one of these guys doesn't get exactly what they want, and we can kind of swoop in and, kind of make this work out to our benefit. So I think the Cardinals are really kind of in the catbird seat when you look at what their needs are and what's going to be available. And they can even do the same kind of thing if they're thinking about going out and getting a DH. Okay, yeah, we might need a DH. Maybe we're interested in Albert, but we don't have to do it. Maybe we're interested in Nick Castellanos, but we don't have to do it. So they're really in probably the best spot they've been in going into free agency in a long time.
Well, and Mosaic preached patience last year, and people were hesitant, to say the least, about that being the case, because we really didn't know. We're coming off the COVID shortened season. We really weren't too happy with the way the Cardinals actually played during that time frame as well. So preaching patience last year was like basically saying, hey, trust me, the Legos on the floor in the dark, you're not going to step on them because I'm here. You're still going to step on those Legos and kill the crap out of your feet. Well, this year it feels like, okay, maybe the Lego pieces are still on the floor, but the light's on, your eyes are open, and you're looking down. You're going to be able to kind of tiptoe around what you need to tiptoe around. And it's not completely soothing, but you definitely do feel more comfortable with what you saw last year. And if they can duplicate, or even not all of it, but if they can duplicate 75% of what they did this year as far as some of these players, I think it's a playoff caliber team. It's a potential championship, not winning team, but could get to a championship game in NLCS in this sense, because they started off last season horrendously. It was not a good start to the season, and it did take a 17-game winning streak to get this team back into playoff contention. But once again, if they can give 75% of that run over the course of the season, it's an entirely different looking ball club, and the standings are wildly different as well. So, I think patience is the key, because you mentioned it before. The CBA is up. Negotiations are taking place. They're having to have these conversations. Well, right now there is no DH in the National League. We know it's coming. It very likely will happen as soon as the CBA is negotiated, signed, and ratified. It's going to happen. But at this point, like you said, you don't have to rush out and sign a DH, because you don't know. And you've got guys that are in your system that could come up and either play a position to move somebody to the DH or fill that DH role. I think a Nolan Gorman could be a very good piece in the DH, at least right now, while you get him continuously adjusted to second base and so forth. And that's the same thing for some of these other big ticket players. I don't think you're going to see any team go out there and sign a mega deal for any of these guys until they know what the CBA is actually going to entail. Because at the end of the day, you could sign a guy to a $300 million contract and it looks good for you at this point, but then the CBA gets ratified and all of a sudden that $300 million contract somehow becomes even more because of bonuses or the way payouts work or what have you. I don't know how any of that works because I'm not that smart, but the CBA could completely change a contract that you sign right now. So I don't think you're going to see some of these big ticket guys get signed. Yes, you're going to see some smaller signings, but once the CBA is the linchpin. And the thing that scares me is the negotiations in this may take a long time. Are we going to lose any part of spring training? If that's the case, do we not see any of these guys sign until after that takes place? And if that's the case, what does that do for next year? Or if this thing starts to stretch into the winter meetings and beyond, do you see these guys start signing maybe 1 or 2 year bridge deals where they get their money and they're signed regardless of the CBA, but then once it's ratified, they can go out and still make their big money?
No, I agree with you. I don't think you're going to see any big name guys sign until this is done. You're going to see kind of what we've seen, some, lower level free agent relief pitchers, maybe a couple of bench guys. You may see a couple of the guys that got offered qualifying offers. A couple of those guys may take them, because it's $18.5 million. So you may see some of that, but, you're not going to see the Stories or the Correas or any of those guys sign until it's done. And you're right. It's probably going to take a long time. It's probably, from everything I'm hearing, it's probably going to be right up to the beginning of spring training, and probably what we're going to see. MLB free agency is probably going to be like NBA free agency normally is, where, okay, free agency started. Hey, 185 people signed in a 3-hour period. That's probably what's going to happen. Everybody says, it's possible that spring training gets pushed back a week or two. Like, we may get to February and it's not done and spring training doesn't start until, maybe the middle of February or closer to the end of February. And you have to push the season back just a little bit. Nobody thinks we're going to miss games. Everybody says they will get a full 162 games in. Both sides completely understand that. But it may take right up until that start of spring training to get everything accomplished. So we may be sitting around, but we've basically been sitting around the last couple of years waiting for free agency to start until February, it feels like. Nolan Arenado signed 2 weeks before the start. The Nolan Arenado trade happened 2 weeks before spring training started, I think, last year.
Yeah.
And that was in the middle of all the big signings. So I think that's probably what you're going to see. The Cardinals had that 3-day period where you signed Yadi Ueno and made that trade, in like 3 days after not doing anything all winter. So I think it's probably going to be something similar to that. So I know we've talked about it. So of all the starting pitching that are out there, the names that you're hearing, a Stroman, a Verlander, we're going to hear Max's name more than once or twice because Mo has basically said they're going to spend a lot of money on pitching. That's their main priority. If it's you, would you go get Scherzer? Would you go get Verlander? Would you go get Marcus Stroman? Would you go get John Gray? Would you go Zach Greinke? Which one of those guys, out of those guys, which ones would you rather have?
Man, if I got a chance to see Verlander pitch a little bit and make sure he is back to where he was at with the Astros, I think Verlander is my number one choice. I've always loved the way he pitches. I have been following him ever since he started game 1 against the Cardinals in the World Series as a rookie, and him and Reyes going at it. So I think for me, if you can guarantee Verlander's healthy and pitching somewhere close to where he was at before the Tommy John surgery, I would go Verlander number 1 for sure. I think Stroman is a good second bet. I would throw Scherzer in there at number 3. The only reason I don't have him at number 1 is just because of the potential price tag. I think if he does maybe he wants to just do a 1-year deal here in St. Louis for a decent amount of money. Maybe he jumps right up to the top of the list, and I would have Scherzer for a year. No problem. But I don't think he's wanting to do that. I think he is looking for his last contract. He wants to be set and just go. So I'd have him at 3. And then after that, it's kind of a toss-up. What I like seeing Clayton Kershaw in a Cardinal uniform for the regular season, hell yeah. For the postseason, I don't know. Maybe the Cardinal devil magic works for him and he goes out there and dominates in the postseason and leads the Cardinals to a World Series championship. I mean, that would be completely 100% fitting for Clayton Kershaw to come into St. Louis and lead this team to a championship. So, you know what? I'll put him at number 4. So I'd go a healthy Verlander, Marcus Stroman, Scherzer, Kershaw.
I'm pretty much right there with you. And from all the reports, Justin Verlander, had a workout the other day and he was hitting 96, 97, and all of his other stuff looked filthy. They said, everybody said, yep, he's ready to go. My question with Verlander, kind of the same thing with Scherzer, is what is he going to want money-wise? If Justin Verlander is willing to take a year, if you could get Justin Verlander for a year and $20 million, yeah, I'd do it. But because he's 38, I think, or might be 39.
Ooh.
If he's wanting 2 or 3 years, then you back away from it. Same thing with Scherzer. I'm curious to see, the fact that Max had the dead arm and wasn't able to pitch Game 6 of the postseason. Does that take away from some of the money that he might have made? Are there going to be teams that go, do we need to start thinking about, is Max really completely healthy? Would he take a 1-year deal or a year and an option to come back to St. Louis? Those would be interesting. Although at the same time, it's like, man, if we could get a good left-hander, they don't have a left-hander. So that's where Stroman would be interesting. And, like you said, Clayton Kershaw working with Yachty, with Waino for one playoff run, that could be an interesting thing. Although there's a lot of people that think Kershaw may retire if he doesn't go back to LA. So, although the Dodgers didn't give him a qualifying offer, so I doubt that he goes back to LA. But he's only 35. I mean, you would think Clayton Kershaw's still got a couple of decent years left. But it'll be interesting. John, and then you talk about some of those other guys. Marcus Stroman would not be bad. He's going to be a lot cheaper than those other guys. It's going to take you're going to have to sign him to a multi-year deal. But, you might be able to sign him for a multi-year deal comparable to what you would have to pay a Verlander or a Scherzer for 2 years. And then you get into guys like John Gray, who would be, your 4th or 5th starter. That's not going to cost you a whole lot of money, but could be solid in St. Louis, so it's just going to depend on where they want to go. Okay, so we went there. So then we're just going
to real quick. So you know, Verlander, 38 years old. He will be 39 at the start of the season. Birthday's on February 20th.
Yeah, I thought he was right around there somewhere. Okay, so we've answered the pitching question. Okay, so if you spend that money on pitching, shortstop, I know we've played this game a couple of times. Where do you go? Are you interested in Corey Seager? Although, I'll let you answer this question. Seager, Story, Baez, Correa. Which one? I don't think they're going to go. I don't think they're interested in Simeon, really. But out of those 4, which one?
Oh, man. The one that intrigues me the most, and I know a lot of Cardinals fans are gonna just kill me for it. I know Brendan Schaefer put it out there the other day as well. I would be real interested to see what Javi Baez could do here in St. Louis, paired up with Yachty, being able to work with the Cardinals team as a whole. I feel like the Cardinals can take on that risk because he's not going to be the guy that you're going to plug into the 3 or 4 spot. You can put him down in the 7th or 8th spot and be a guy that can drive in runs. And if he does strike out, it's not going to hurt the team as much as it is in the 3 or 4 hole. But he's also a guy you could put maybe at the 2 spot and be able to see good pitches and connect and drive in runs as well. So I'd really, and the price might be right for him as well, especially if he's only seeking that 1-year deal. I would like to take a flyer on Baez for sure, but of the other guys that are out there, they're all going to cost a ton of money. And as much as I'd love to see a Seager or a Correa here in St. Louis, I think they could be very successful here. I think the money is just too much. I think it's going to come down to Trevor Story. I think his relationship with Nolan Arenado, what he's seen of the Cardinals organization through Nolan Arenado, what he's seen from the Rockies through Nolan Arenado. I think if the Cardinals do go after anybody, it's going to be Story, and it'll probably be the guy they end up with.
Yeah, Corey Seager seems like he would make a lot of sense because he's left-handed,
Yep.
And he's young. Although when you start looking at it and you hear people talk about him in L.A., his defense has been pretty suspect, and there's a lot of people in L.A. that say that he's not going to be able to play shortstop for more than another year or two, that he's going to have to move to third base. Well, if that's the case, that doesn't make any sense for the Cardinals, because you've got a pretty good third baseman in Nolan Arenado, and then you've got Nolan Gorman, who you've had to move from third base. So if that's the case with Seager, that doesn't make sense. I think I'm with you on the Baez thing. I think if it's a year and an option, I'd be really interested too, just because by far he's the most athletic of any of those guys. He could be the most exciting of any of those guys. Imagine putting that glove with Arenado. I mean, like you said, they could very easily have the best defensive infield in history. We talk about the 82 Cardinals, but that could be even better. The strikeouts worry you, and some of the weird base running things that he does worries you. But, maybe having a guy like Yachty around would straighten him out. Maybe he would walk the line a little bit and be a little bit better. But I'm kind of with you. I think Story is the guy that's going to end up here because, again, the Cardinals talked about the fact that they were interested at the trade deadline. They made it public. And how many times do we talk about when the Cardinals start talking about somebody a year or so before and it gets out in the public, keep your eyes on him because that's usually the guy that ends up here. I mean, it happened with Goldschmidt. It happened with Arenado. It's happened Matt Holliday. It's happened multiple times. So it would not shock me at all if Trevor Story signed a deal. I would, the only thing, if you're going to sign Story, I think you got to try to get him for more than a year because, if you sign Story for a year and he comes in and has a really good year, then all of a sudden, his value goes through the roof, and then you're right back in the same spot again because you don't have a shortstop, and what do you do? So I think maybe you sign Trevor Story to a 2 or 3 year deal potentially, and I think that's where it'll end up. But I think it comes down to him and Baez. I think those are the two logical options for the Cardinals at shortstop.
Well, I mean, the Cardinals have about $30 million to play with, so I mean, you're talking Seager and Correa, looking at northwards of $250+ million contracts and extended time contracts, that sort of thing. It doesn't fit the Cardinals' MO for the most part. I mean, up until Matt Holliday, they hadn't signed a contract longer than 6 years. So it's not something that they do. And I think you're right. I think it does come down to those two. But you also have, guys down in the minors that are doing incredibly well for the Cardinals as well. I mean, you've got the Arizona Fall League going on right now, and you've got guys like Yepes and Newbar have had great fall leagues. Zach Thompson, another one of those that had a really, really good fall league. Brendan Donovan down there, another third base prospect. I mean, you got 2 third base prospects down there that are lighting it up in the fall league. And you got Nolan Arenado up there, and you still got Nolan Gorman that could move over there as well. So the Cardinals prospects are doing well, setting them up to maybe make a trade potentially as well, give them something to work with at the deadline. But, I think the one guy that still continues to stick out is Lars Nootbaar. I mean, he's a guy that coming into last year, no one had really heard of. He had the success in spring training that got him to call up in the on the opening day roster, and everybody loved Newts. But it was kind of like one of those, okay, well, maybe this is another Bo Hart or Joe McEwing or something to that effect. But he had a solid, consistent year, and now he's having a great fall league. This might be that guy off the bench that the team has really kind of been needing for the last couple of years, and they were able to grow him up in their own farm system.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely, you look at it, you say he's definitely that left-handed fourth outfielder. You think, I mean, you're hoping that he can come into next year and continue this. Like you said, he's had a great fall league. He had his ups and downs last year. He went through some streaks where he couldn't hit, but he played solid defense. He had good base running. So I think he's a guy that can definitely contribute on this team. And, they've got some pieces. If you have Gorman and if a guy like Yepes ends up making the team, you've got some solid pieces on the bench. They're going to be really young. And, you're going to still have some questions about whether they can do it at this level. I'd still like to see them go out and get another, veteran guy to put in that mix and not just be counting on a bunch of kids. But we'll see how they go there. We've got a long way to go. And before we move on and talk about anything else, we got to talk about somebody who is no longer a Cardinal and put out, a really good tribute, a thank you, a love letter to St. Louis pretty much. And we've ripped him a lot on this show and talked about him pretty badly the last couple of years. But Matt Carpenter was a good Cardinal. He was here for a long time, part of some really good teams. And, we talked about this, and I've talked about this with other people the last few days. It's really a shame because the last couple of years have been so bad that people forget about how good Matt Carpenter was. I mean, he was in the top 10 in MVP voting 3 different times. He was an all-star 3 times. He had 50 plus doubles one year. I mean, he was one of the best hitters, one of the best leadoff hitters in baseball for a good chunk of seasons. And the Cardinals wouldn't have gone to postseason without Matt Carpenter. And he had some big moments against the Dodgers in the postseason. And, people just really need to remember how good Matt Carpenter was for a long stretch of time. And, I heard somebody say, people have asked this question and I've heard people go, oh, how stupid. But in my mind, there's no doubt that Matt Carpenter deserves to be, and at some point, it may take a little while, but Matt Carpenter definitely deserves to wear a red jacket and be a part of the Cardinal Hall of Fame at some point.
I can see that being the case. The last couple of years have not been great. And this is the thing that I argue for a lot of these players. His contract the last couple of years was not great. It was not indicative of the play that he put out there on the field. He got old, got slow. But in a lot of these leagues, these later contracts are not about current production. It's indicative of paying for the past. And that's what Matt Carpenter got. He was getting compensated for his past and what he did for this team. I mean, he, like you said earlier, he led the league in doubles in 2013 and 2015. He was first in hits in 2013 with 199. So first in runs in 2013, 126. Games played in 2014, he was fifth in the NL at 158. 2013, seventh in the NL in triples was 7. So, I mean, he's done a lot for this team. And like you said, he was in the MVP vote for 3 years. He had that great stretch a couple years ago where he vaulted himself into that MVP conversation. So, I mean, Matt Carpenter was a guy that gave us all to this team. And a guy, if you read his Players Tribune, thank you, was a guy that didn't even think he was going to play baseball after his college career. So for him to be able to think he's out of the game and produce a career like he did, I mean, you got to look at it. I mean, he ended up in his career with it was a 262 average, okay? Yeah, pretty decent for a major league player in this day and age. 169, 186 the last 2 years. So that actually brought it down. So he was hitting somewhere in the 270, 275 range, which is very good for a baseball player at this point in time. His 2013 year, he hit 318, 11 home runs, drove in 78, scored 126, like we said. So he's done a lot and played in so many games, 1,329 games in his career here in St. Louis. So, yeah, he deserves recognition, respect, a thank you to Matt Carpenter because he did it the right way, never complained. And even when he was at the end of his career here, not hitting well, he was still going out there and giving his all, giving effort, trying to make sure he could do what he could to help his team win. And a lot of times the last couple of years, a lot of things ended in strikeouts. But I don't think you could ever question his commitment and desire to be a great player. It just didn't work out the last couple of years.
No, in a lot of ways, John Mozeliak did him a huge disservice by giving him that contract. Because if he wasn't getting paid $18 million, the fans wouldn't have been so harsh on him the last couple of years. They would have understood. And I've said for a long time, the downfall of Matt Carpenter was that, he had chronic back issues. It started in like 2017. He kept playing through them. But, at some point that catches up with you and it slows everything down. You're not able to get through the strike zone. You're not able to swing like you were used to. And I don't think he was ever the same guy. And it just got worse and worse as he got older. But, he was a great player. He was a huge part of those, 2011, 2012 as a bench player. He was part of that World Series team in 2011 when he came up. 2012, he was part of the team on the bench that got to the NLCS. 2013, huge part of that World Series team. 14, 15, those playoff teams. So I mean, those teams were Matt Carpenter was a huge piece of it. And the Cardinals don't go to the postseason any of those years without Matt Carpenter.
No, not at all. So, a huge thank you to Matt Carpenter. Good luck, well wishes. The 13th round overall pick, 399. Matt Carpenter is no longer a St. Louis Cardinal. He essentially elected free agency after the Cardinals declined his option. We'll see if another team goes after him. Do you see him playing at all next year in Major League Baseball?
I know he would like to. I mean, I can see a team. I can see like the Rangers or maybe the Astros, one of those Texas teams, and giving him a shot at spring training and seeing if he's got anything left. I could definitely see that happening.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's possible. I mean, you see a lot of these veterans come into spring training, and some of them make the team and unexpectedly help you out. So we'll see if that's the case for Matt Carpenter. We'll be rooting for him unless it's a team in the Central Division and we have to root against him. So.
Right.
All right. Real quickly, one final note with the Cardinals and kind of a big note for a couple of different reasons. The winter warm-up is coming up in January, 26th annual, and they're moving it. They're moving it out of the hotel, and they're moving it to Busch Stadium in Ballpark Village. Now, part of that is because of the way social distancing rules are set up now. They want to give fans the most ability to spread out and be safe and conduct things in a proper manner. But it's also because this thing just continues to grow and grow and grow and grow. It gets bigger every single year. So they're moving it over there. They're going to be over at the main stage at Valley Sports Live, Budweiser Brewhouse, the Crown Room, PBR. All the autograph sessions are going to be there. Special presentations at Cardinal Nation. Busch Stadium is going to serve as the site for the Cardinals Care Store, silent auction display, more autograph sessions, a vendor hall for sports memorabilia. So the stadium is going to be open as well. And the other reason it's a big deal is because we're going to be there. We don't know in what capacity just yet, but we're going to be able to get a chance to experience and be a part of the Cardinals winter warm-up this year. I know, like I said, details are very, very, very limited at this point in time, but I tell you what, Scott, I'm excited that we're going to get a chance to be a part of it, and I cannot wait for January now.
Yep. It'll be fun. It'll be that time. Hopefully, about that time, maybe everybody will be really excited because maybe the CBA will be done, and maybe we'll have some big signings. Maybe that moment will hit when everybody signs, and we'll have some new Cardinals to introduce and let the fans meet during the winter warm up too. Maybe we'll get to meet some new Cardinals that weekend.
Fly them in. And you know what? Hey, if anybody's listening, I volunteer. And Scott, I'm sure you volunteer. We'll drive any of these guys in. I mean, I'm right down the road from the Chesterfield Airport. If you need a private jet to land there, I can pick somebody up, drive them down there. No questions asked. Not a problem. I got heat in my car, and I'll pop in some fresh cold water if I need to. So, hey, if that's the case, just give us a call. We'll definitely be the ferries if we need to.
Yep, definitely. Toasted Tavern, the official taxi drivers of the winter warm-up.
Hey, if that gets us interviews with Cardinal players, hey, there you go. Interview the Cardinal players in the car. It's just like the Seinfeld thing. I mean, it's no carpool karaoke, but carpool Cardinal confidential.
Hey, maybe we could do carpool karaoke. Get some Cardinal guys doing karaoke on the way to the ballpark from the airport.
That would be pretty freaking awesome. We'll have to continue to work with Brian Bartow and see if we can make something happen with that.
That would be nice.
Oh man! All right, let's jump over real quick to the NFL because we got a couple things to handle there. First off, Thursday night game, Baltimore at Miami. I don't think this is going to be any sort of contest. I think Miami is very, very bad this year. Brian Flores had success last year, seems to have gotten away from him, and I think they're very close to spiraling out of control. I got Baltimore in this game. They have definitely impressed me. They're leading the AFC North right now, and that's without running backs. I mean, yes, they've got some guys in there now that have done a very good job getting them, including Le'Veon Bell, but I got Baltimore in this one, no question.
You would think that would be a slam dunk, but after watching a really, really bad Jacksonville team beat Buffalo in a 9-6 game. Anything is possible. I hope Baltimore wins this one. They should win it, but nothing in the NFL will surprise me this year the way it's going.
I 100% agree, because last week's picks were not all that great. Dallas losing to Denver, Atlanta beating New Orleans, the Giants taking out the Raiders, the aforementioned Jags over Buffalo. You got Tennessee beating the Rams. That's when I almost did go with the Titans on that. I think you were there as well.
Yeah, I went back and forth. You think, Derrick Henry's not there in LA. But yeah, the Titans showed you a lot in that game, so, and it makes you wonder how good the Rams really are.
Well, I mean, they did just go out and bring in Von Miller. So, I mean, everybody's going to LA right now. And speaking of that, you got OBJ out there now, cleared waivers, and now kind of has his choice of where he goes. He's going to take a couple days to kind of figure out what he wants to do. We posed the question out there the other day about where OBJ goes, and we got some responses, including the Rams being one of them. Looking at it, it feels like the Rams, the Chiefs, Seahawks are up there as far as the potential destinations. Who are you looking at as far as A, where OBJ would want to go, and B, which team out there could actually benefit from bringing him in, regardless of if it's who he chooses?
I mean, there's a lot of teams that could definitely use him. I'm right before we did the show, I thought I heard something about that he had narrowed it down to 4 teams, and I didn't catch all of it. Kansas City and the Raiders were 2 of the teams that were in that list. I think I might have heard New Orleans. I'm not sure who the 4th one was, but all of those teams could definitely use him. People say Kansas City, I don't know, but man, can you imagine if you have Tyreek Hill on one side and Odell Beckham Jr. on the other side and Travis Kelce in the slot with that offense? I mean, how do you stop that passing offense? Although if you don't have an offensive line, it really doesn't matter. But, that could be tough. Same thing with the Raiders. Put him with David Carr out there.
Derek Carr.
Yeah, Derek Carr. I was like, wait a minute. I think I said that wrong. David's his brother. Derek Carr, OBJ with the Raiders could be interesting. I don't really understand the fascination in New Orleans. I don't think they're going anywhere, even if you bring in OBJ. But, it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Like I said, there's a lot of teams. It doesn't sound like he's interested, but Baltimore would be a good landing spot for him. So.
I was thinking that was one of the ones, the dark horse teams for me, was Baltimore, because, you got Hollywood Brown there. But outside of that, I mean, Sammy Watkins has had an okay year. But you put a dynamic receiver in Baltimore for Lamar Jackson, all of a sudden that vaults them even higher in my mind. And that almost eliminates the fact that they don't have essentially their top running back. So yeah, Baltimore, I'm glad you pointed that out, because that was going to be one of the ones I was looking at. I mean, Seattle, obviously he's worked out with Russell Wilson a lot in the offseason, a potential there. And the latest that I see, Diana Rossini about 12 hours ago, it seems like she says basically on a day in which he could make his final decision, free agent wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. is honing in on the Chiefs, Packers, and Saints per league sources. Now, obviously that was 12 hours ago. So that could all change or have changed at this point. But you look at that, and if it's those 3 teams, I mean, of those 3, who would you go with?
If I'm Beckham, I would the way people are playing right now, I would probably go to Green Bay. Honestly, you put him out there. Although, does he want to be the number 2? Well, he would be the number 2 wide receiver in Kansas City as well, probably. Yep. But definitely would be in Green Bay, So does he want to do that? Although maybe you think, okay, if I go there with Aaron the way he's playing, maybe we go win a Super Bowl in Green Bay. I think that's probably where I would lean out of those 3. I still think the Raiders are a better fit, but yeah, Green Bay would probably be my lead right there, and then Kansas City would be second out of those 3. I think, like I said, I don't really see the fit with the Saints.
I'll throw one more team out there, and this is one of those teams that you go, okay, maybe I could see it. The Patriots. You've seen what Bill Belichick has done with guys like Randy Moss and others of that caliber. You got a young quarterback in there. Is it something where maybe the Patriots should toss their hat into the ring there?
I don't think so, because I don't think he wants to play with a young quarterback. I think he wants to play with somebody who's more seasoned, he's got a shot to win a Super Bowl this year. And even with him in New England, the Patriots aren't winning a Super Bowl.
That's very true, because I think even though they had a bit of a hiccup against Jacksonville, I still think Buffalo is one of those teams that might be there at the end. Cleveland has looked really, really good. At least last week, their defense finally got healthy, and they looked phenomenal. They actually just rolled the Bengals. So, yeah, it's still going to be tough for sure.
Isn't it weird how much better Cleveland's offense looks when OBJ is not there? And, is that a sense of Baker feeling like he needs to try to get him the ball? And then, although he still didn't try to get him the ball a whole lot when he was on the field, but that offense, you look at last year, it just seemed like after he got hurt, everything was more cohesive. So for whatever reason, him on that team, it just didn't click.
It really didn't. It did not at all. And all right, as we're winding down here, we got to talk about the elephant in the room, essentially, in Aaron Rodgers. This thing is, I guess, not much of a surprise in a sense. I mean, the story's been out there, tested positive for COVID, had said he was, and I'll say this, I don't think he ever actually came out and said he was vaccinated. I think everything in a roundabout way was, hey, yes, I'm taking something that I believe is protecting me, which is not the same as saying they're vaccinated. But he tests positive for COVID. It comes out that he's unvaccinated. Well, now he and Alan Lazard have both been fined because Rodgers has been around reporters with no mask believing he was vaccinated. Lazard went to a Halloween party. He's not vaccinated. They get fined a ridiculous sum of just under $15,000 a piece. Like, come on, really? And the Packers were fined $300,000 for allowing this to happen. And obviously, Rodgers missed Sunday's game. No timetable yet on if he's going to be available for the next game against Seattle. That's kind of why I'm still kind of hedging my pick on that one. Not sure which direction I want to go just yet. But it's just another case of it feels like Aaron Rodgers putting himself above everybody else.
Well, here's the thing, and like you said, that fine's a joke. And it's another black mark on the NFL, because here's the thing. The league knew. The Packers knew. They've known this whole time that he wasn't vaccinated. And they let him go talk to reporters. And they let him, because they weren't letting him travel on the same plane with his teammates. He wasn't allowed to go to team meals with the teammates. The league knew. The Packers knew. They just lied to everybody else, and said, oh, yeah, he's fine. So they put people at risk, knowingly put all kinds of other people at risk. It just shows you again how out of touch the NFL is and how much they don't care. Because Aaron Rodgers is a cash cow. He's a golden, ooh, look at all the money we can make if Aaron Rodgers is out there. Look at all the things we can do with Aaron Rodgers. Who cares if he's not vaccinated? We just won't tell anybody. Oh, yeah, we thought he was vaccinated. But then when they look back on it, we did know, because we did everything we could to keep him away from the teammates and stuff. We kept them safe, but to hell with the media and everybody else.
Yeah, that's the thing that galls me the most, is that you put the media in jeopardy, and regardless of what you think of the media in the NFL, you don't do that. That's just terrible. You just don't do that kind of stuff. And with the lawsuit going on now against the NFL based here in St. Louis, it makes you sit back and question, okay, do you actually want a team here that's associated with this kind of league that does these sorts of things? And that's a whole different can of worms. We don't have time to get into it, obviously, but it's another, like you said, black mark on the NFL. And you just look at it and you go, okay, well, I mean, if I'm Green Bay, I'm finding a way to just cut ties with Aaron Rodgers after this year. I don't care how good he is. I don't care what he brings to this team. I don't care what potential of championships he has the ability to bring to Green Bay. I'm cutting ties. I'm after this season's over, it's, hey, we'll find a way to facilitate this. I believe they reworked his contract so that he can leave after this season anyway. So I just say, hey, thanks for the memories. Peace out, and we're gonna move on to Jordan Love.
You would think, although, you hear some people say if Aaron Rodgers wins a Super Bowl, the Packers will keep him in, especially since Jordan Love didn't look like he was anywhere close to being ready last week against the Chiefs. But, another article came out this weekend about Aaron Rodgers and about how the coaches can't stand him. None of his teammates can stand him. Nobody can stand him because he's so self-absorbed and just a horrible human being. But, these Aaron Rodgers, he's the discount double check guy, so everybody's going to love him, right?
That is very, very, very true. So, well, guys, a great show tonight. Lots of Cardinal talk for sure. We're going to continue to track everything going on in Major League Baseball, especially with the CBA negotiations going on. Didn't even talk about the Blues for the most part tonight, but they're back in action tomorrow night against the Nashville Predators. Lots of stuff going on well for the Blues right there. Jake Neighbors did get sent down to the Edmonton Oil Kings after his 9-game appearance up here. So we'll kind of keep track of his career and hopefully see him again next year. So lots of stuff going on there. Scott, you got anything else before we head out tonight?
No, good show, man. Good to be back. Good to actually see you. We hadn't talked in a couple of weeks, so
yeah.
it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. And like I said, always when there's stuff to talk about, it makes it even easier. So, thank you guys for joining us tonight. We'll be back at a later date. We'll let you guys know as soon as we get that hashed out because we're still both very, very, very busy with work and school and other things going on. So as soon as we know when we're going to be back, we'll let you know. But thank you guys for joining us. Catch all the Blues action and NFL action you possibly can. And also, for a personal note, go out there and watch some college volleyball this weekend, the women's college volleyball. It's been really good this year, and it's an exciting game, and you should definitely check it out because it's something that you should definitely not miss. So for Scott, I am Wags. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys later.
Hey, it's U-Man here from Casey. For all your sports news, catch the Toasted Tavern with Scott Tobin and the man called Wags, weeknights at 9 p.m. You can follow Toasted Tavern on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Let's get toasted.